Received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, hello, Randy. Yes, I did hear the good news. Congratulations. She's a very lucky person to have you. I know you're a strong spirit, and you're a fighter. And I think with her in your corner, things are going to look up for you. You're not going to get out of prison and then wind up going back because you got discouraged or you didn't realize that there are other people that depend on you. So having somebody by your side who believes in you is fantastic. Yeah, my situation is a little bit different. They really don't want me to have a meaningful relationship with anybody, and I haven't really been told that, but she has. And so it's kind of a tricky situation, but I enjoy the fight because it gives me a personal stake in this so that I know if I can win this, things will be happy for her and for me. And if I lose, it just gives me something else to push for because I look at it as a battle lost, but the war continues. And plus, I would rather have them come after me than to retaliate on the people that's in prison. And with me being directly involved in the fight, I don't have to wake up one day and my chief witness or my number one informant has a change of mind. And that happens quite a bit within the DOC. I'll get a good case going, a lot of support, bring in some people who can look into it and do some research, and then the person just says, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Kind of like with Paula Gardner. She just gave up in the middle of our marriage quest. And it was because all of the pressure they put on them. And everybody that I do get into a relationship with, they put the pressure on them. And then they'll tell these people he has this bad history with women. Well, the only reason I have this bad history is because when I get into a relationship, they do everything that they can to break it up. And when you're hit day after day, I don't care who you are, even people who are captured in a time of war and they're in a prison POW camp, if the enemy just is relentless, even the United States government understands that everybody has a breaking point and is not going to hold that against the person. The person could be days and days of being tortured and then finally give up some information that we don't want them to give up. But there's only so far you can take it. And in prison, they're locked there. You guys are in a cell. You're under their jurisdiction, and there's not a lot you can do. Yeah, I know. And even though I've never been there, I can understand the pressure you go to. And I tell everybody, I don't mind you buckling into the pressure. If these people are going to abuse their power in there, let's just record it. And everybody's been keeping a note. Good. Yeah, I'm glad you have that notebook or journal. Yeah, that works. Because when you get out, that's when you can do the most. Yes, it's nice to get out, put it all behind you. But one of the ways that you can take control and regain control of your life is to fight back and help others that are in your situation. Yep, that's right. I know. Candace is doing a really good job. She'll pop back once in a
You have
while
60 seconds
and
remaining.
work with people, and then she's in a mission out there to motivate people and to help folks. And when the young people see that, it shows them that something that's been sitting in the back of their head can be done. So they're a very good example, leading by example. Okay, yeah, and that I'm happy with. And so hopefully I can work with her to help you out. But give her all the information. Send her emails, send her letters.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Just explain what's going on in there because eventually you'll get out. And I know you want to put it behind you, but maybe she can help encourage you to write to a legislator or write to the governor, the president. Right, right, yeah. So we definitely need to stick together on something like that. You'll be a great mentor to the team. Well, yeah, well, I do appreciate you calling. It was
Thank you
nice.
for using inmate call. Goodbye.
Hello, welcome to AQS Inmate Call. I am your host, Joel Wilborn. Now, I have a background in political science, so I like the government, I like politics, and I like the way that we do things through government programs and situations and the way the government is managed. That kind of stuff really impresses me. And I'm kind of relating that to this podcast because the Washington Department of Corrections, and I'll just use that specifically, it could apply to any Department of Corrections really, but the Washington Department of Corrections, they have certain privileges that the other government departments don't have. And I think that's one of the problems that we have with the Department of Corrections, why it feels that it doesn't have to comply. Now, we recently had a change of leadership. And every time there's a new leadership that comes in, and I don't care if it's the state, local, federal, it gives an opportunity for some change or maybe improvement, maybe a different way to look at things on this. And so this is one of the things that I'm really excited about with this new change. The federal government's changing hands. The state government is changing hands. Now, I really didn't have a good relationship with the prior governor of Washington, Governor Inslee. I think he was more or less listening to what the Department of Corrections had to say. I don't know, and they constantly lied about me and to him. And he would look into some things here and there, but it really didn't go anywhere. The DOC had its the final word. Now, the Attorney General ran for office and won, and so now our new governor is a former Attorney General, Bob Ferguson. I worked with the Attorney General's office because when the DOC was doing stuff I didn't like, I would send a letter to them and they would say, well, we protect them. We're the ones that represent them in court. So it would refer it back to the DOC, and the DOC would actually answer my question, and that's because of the pressure from the AG. So that gave me a little more. I was a little more impressed with what this office could do, and I like that. It made me feel comfortable. And so I wasn't a big fan of him running for governor. But before he even got into office, he changed leadership of the DOC to someone that I don't know might work in this particular case. So this guy, his name is Tim Lang. Now, prior to his appointment as Secretary of Corrections, Lang served for 16 years working on corrections issues with the Attorney General's office as the department's chief legal counsel and head of the Attorney General's Corrections Division. As chief legal counsel to DOC, Lang has been instrumental in addressing legal issues and implementing reforms that promote rehabilitation and reduce recidivism. Lang has an extensive background in legal matters concerning corrections, as well as a deep understanding of the challenges that face DOC's facilities. And he received his BA in Public Administration and Economics from the University of Colorado and earned his JD from the Northwestern School of Law at Lewis and Clark College in Portland. Okay, that's impressive. It's not exactly what I was looking for with the Department of Corrections, but when they take people, because we had one that was a former guard, and then we had another one that was the head of Department of Health and Human Services, and it's just, it didn't work because they're part of that clique. This one, I think the Washington Department of Corrections needs some legal counsel because they're just stepping all over the law. And my recent challenge with them was to bring up legal matters. I read through policies and read through laws and apply it to my situation. The most prevalent thing is them violating the false statement law. Government officials are not allowed to provide false statements to people. I don't hear too often of that in social media or in the mainstream news of where somebody's being arrested for lying to the public. And it's a shame that there has to be a law that tells people you need to tell folks the truth. But I'm glad they have it because it's something that I like to use to my advantage. Now, with the Department of Corrections, they feel that they're above the law. At least that's the impression that I get. And so what happens is when I get a statement from them that's false, I will report it. I've talked to local law enforcement. They're well aware of the law. I've even told people, the DOC in emails, if you continue to supply me with false information, I will report you. And I do. And I have no problem with it because that law is there for a reason. It doesn't mean you can walk all over it. And I want them to know that since they make all these demands that I have to be perfect and I have to follow these policies, they need to set the example, need to follow it themselves. And this is the thing I picked up from them. And the best way when you're challenging somebody or when you have an opponent is you want to learn their weaknesses. You want to learn their strengths. And I spent years studying these guys, and it depends on who's in the office. They had a person in the office that just walked all over people's rights. I heard about it from the inmates. I would report it, and these guys would try to cover it over. They have a habit of just lying or pushing things out or dismissing things or ignoring things. These are strengths for me. And as long as they continue to use those tactics, I will continue to fight them. Now, just to give you an idea of what the Department of Corrections has, I'll read this. The Washington Department of Corrections has unique privileges and powers related to its role in managing incarcerated individuals in correctional facilities. These privileges go beyond those of other government departments and focus specifically on maintaining security, overseeing rehabilitation, and managing prison operations. Some examples include control over incarcerated individuals. The DOC has the authority to enforce rules and manage the daily lives of incarcerated people, including their housing, work assignments, movement, visitation, and access to communication. Specialized facilities and security. Unlike other departments, the DOC operates and manages high security environments, including prisons and work release facilities. This involves control over surveillance, searches, and use of force policies. Employment programs and labor. Correctional Industries, a division of DOC, oversees incarcerated individuals' labor. This includes managing work programs and generate revenue, often with lower labor costs than outside markets, which isn't typical for other state departments. Sentencing and release influence. The DOC can recommend parole or other release decisions, administer supervised release, probation, and enforce conditions for individuals post-incarceration. And revenue generation. Through programs like Correctional Industries, the DOC can generate income by selling goods and services produced by incarcerated individuals. Other departments generally don't rely on similar revenue streams. Privileged communication. The DOC has access to monitoring school tools that allow oversight of communication between incarcerated people and the outside world. Example, phone calls, emails, and mail. To ensure security, something that would be a violation of privacy in other contexts. Restrictive policies and enforcement. The DOC can impose sanctions like solitary confinement, loss of privileges, or other disciplinary measures to maintain order, which goes far beyond the authority of most government departments. Broad policy-making powers. The DOC can set internal policies that impact incarcerated people's rights, living conditions, and opportunities for rehabilitation, often with limited oversight or public scrutiny. Access to incarcerated people's finances. The DOC has control over the financial accounts of incarcerated individuals, including garnishing wages or for restitution, fines, or facility maintenance fees. Partnership with law enforcement and courts. The DOC works closely with law enforcement and the judicial system to track and enforce sentences, probation, and parole. Now, if you really pay attention to that, the DOC has a lot of privileges that the other departments don't. A big thing is they can generate their own money. Now, one thing I wasn't too pleased with Governor Ferguson is he got in and he said he was going to try to trim the budget for the state. That's nice. He had me there. Then he continued on. Everybody's going to have to reduce their budget except education, and that's good. We don't need to be cutting back on our education. And another one that doesn't have to cut back on their budget is the wonderful Department of Corrections. Why would he allow the one department that can make their own revenue, that can generate their own income? They don't have to cut back on their budget. We pop millions of dollars in there. We get nothing in return. But the governor is saying, yeah, we're not going to mess with your budget. And so with correctional industries, which is a section of the DOC, which I do not approve at all, they're getting these people to make all these products for $1 an hour. And then they're selling them. Maybe some people in there are getting kickbacks. I don't know. But that doesn't sit well with me. So maybe this new governor doesn't quite understand what's going on with the DOC. Maybe the DOC is telling them some stuff. But we shall see. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I did submit a complaint with them, and I listed legal issues and issues that overstep their authority within the DOC. One thing the DOC can't do is break the law. In that little section I read you, it doesn't say that that certain laws don't apply to them. All laws apply to them. Now, when I read through the Washington state laws, there are times that I'll see that an exception is the DOC, and that could be like the privacy thing, reading mail, and that goes with their job. So if you go by policy and you go by law, people understand it, because if I read a law, it tells me that a letter that I sent to my loved one can be opened and read, then I'll expect that. If it's opened and read and maybe returned to me because there was some stuff in there that I shouldn't have had or shouldn't have said, or whatever, that I have no problem with. But if they open read it and then throw it away and don't tell anybody, that's an issue. And I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. And so that's something that needs to be brought. But in the public, there's things we could say about them. They shouldn't be doing this, and they should be watched. But there's a lot of laws that protect, and so there's minimum restraint that we can put on these folks, and we can't really fight them. And I know I've been told over the years fighting the DOC is difficult, but fighting for what's right, something that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about years ago, and somebody I follow with great respect, he went against what was wrong, and through perseverance, he was able to make some headway. The same thing with the DOC. If we constantly promote that they're not following the law, then we're going to make some headway. And putting somebody who knows the law in charge, maybe that's going to help. Now, the superintendent of the Washington Correction Center for Women, I wasn't a big fan of her. She was one of the ones that blocked me from sending emails, and to a certain extent sending mail or even communicating with anybody in the Washington Department of Correction facilities. Well, she is not in her position, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I'm glad she's gone, because I don't think she was doing a very good job, and all she ever did was resist me. And maybe the new person that takes over will care about the people in that facility, will care that rehabilitation is important, and we need to work together to get the people safely back into the community. Instead of filling up the prisons and making all this money and getting all these kickbacks, let's start shutting down some prisons. Inslee at one time was talking about shutting down prisons, but then there's a lot of resistance to that because we've got all this crime. We need to lock these people up. Maybe with some of the influence that the DOC has, maybe with this Tim Lang, he's going to look at it and think we'd be better off closing down some of these prisons, focusing on alternative means. I'm hoping we'll get that. I know the government can make some changes. We were coming up with an oversight committee, and they pushed back on that. Well, maybe this new governor, if we talk to him enough, because he's not going to fix anything he doesn't know about. And it's hard to hide something when people are talking about it. It's like they say, you learn a secret and you don't tell anyone, it's a secret. The minute you tell someone, it's no longer a secret. And nobody's telling anybody, so these secrets are still out there. Now, when I broadcast stuff, I like to think I have a little bit of influence on some of the decisions people make, because I'm giving them a side that normally isn't shared with them. Now, Kimberly Carter, she approached me about doing a story about one of her cellmates, Diane Bowerman, who was in there for murder. And she got a really long sentence. And Kimberly talks about that in her podcast, which you can find under Inmate Call. So we broadcast that, kind of given an oversight of her story. And then before Governor Inslee left office, he commuted her sentence. And Kimberly was saying she should be very happy that her sentence was commuted, but she seems to be upset and kind of changing her personality. Anything could go on in that. And that just goes to show that when, even with good news, something could be bouncing around in a person's mind. And that's something we need to pay attention to. We need to concentrate on that. And I think that shows that the story comes out, the governor's leaving the office, he commutes this sentence. Yay, but there's still work that needs to be done. Are they going to just dump her out on the street and forget about it? They're expecting her to come back. What happens next? And this is where Bob Ferguson is going to come in. And this is what I'm going to be watching and broadcasting on. I didn't expect this to go this far, but I'm glad it did. And I'm glad I had that story put out there. And hopefully I can do a really good follow-up story with Kimberly as well. Now, we have got people out here that blame guns. They don't realize that there are millions of firearms in the United States. If guns killed people, we'd all be dead because these guns would revolt and kill us all. I don't know why. That's one thing that I will never understand. Even talking to these people that are anti-gun. How can a gun that outnumbers us, how can they kill us and then not want to right now? I don't know. What's the deal? Millions of guns, more than the people in the United States, but we're not dead because they all kill. So I'd like to concentrate on the real issue, and that's the people. As long as we focus on the people and not on profit and not blame something that can't possibly be a problem, we'll make it. We'll do fine. Okay, this was quite a lot of work ahead of me. Hopefully, you'll be able to look at this and realize that we've got a very powerful government department that nobody really seems to pay attention to. They stay in the background. Let's bring it out to the light. Let's let people know what's going on behind these secure walls. And maybe we can reduce crime instead of blaming somebody or something else. So with this new leadership in here, I'm going to keep an eye on it, and I'm going to expect a lot from them. Maybe by the time this is all said and done, there'll be some great changes and things will be improved. Maybe it'll be the same old politics, which is fine with me. I like politics. Well, go out and have yourself a magnificent day and make fabulous memories for tomorrow.